थैंक यू। ठाकुर माँ स्वामी जी के चरणों में वंदना करते हुए आप सबको मेरी नमस्ते। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, आई वुड लाइक टू थैंक डॉक्टर गुलशन शर्मा, डायरेक्टर ICSI, for creating such a wonderful platform. This platform is really doing so good for so many people of different walks of life. It is a learning experience for new generation to come. A lot of different activities are being done in different sections, and speakers of very high profile are addressing and giving their viewpoints. I am just a speck in sand in presence of all those speakers. I really thank you, Dr. Gulshan Sharma, again for giving me this opportunity to address and talk to for Swami Vivekananda's addresses at Chicago, World Parliament of Religion. Talking for Swamiji is a difficult task for me. Swamiji is a spirit and energy, and speaking for an energy is really very difficult, at least for me. His presence can be felt even today also. When you read anything about Swamiji, your body really shivers. You get goosebumps when you go through the words, especially when he addresses the masses and make you do something for your country and for the people. I don't know what would have happened to those people who were in front of him and listening to him face to face. Really, they were lucky, but I can feel what would have been happening in them after listening to him. Today I am going to share with you my viewpoints about Swamiji's address at World Parliament of Religion that took place from 11 September to 27 September 1893. The Parliament of Religion was an adjunct of the World Columbian Exposition, which was held in Chicago in 1893 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus. Some of the declared objectives of the Parliament were to present the important truth held and taught by different religions of the world, and to bring the nations of the earth into more friendly relationship. After the Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda and some of his brother disciples moved about as wandering monks, while others left. Wandering of Swamiji was full of rich experience, and it was an occasion for him to feel the pulse of India. He felt deeply for the poor of India and realized that the religious thoughts, the lifeblood of the country, was clear lacking in proper food, clothing and education. The strength of people was being sapped by the foreign rule. The country appeared to be almost inert and corpse-like without hope of energy. But piercing through the energy appearances, Swamiji could see the nation was not dead or dying, but was in deep slumber. Swamiji knew that the religion was the strength, the life center of this country, and upon which the eradication of religious ideas from the land could India die. As long as the religion remains the bedrock of our existence, so long no power under the heaven could ever be able to crush our Indians' national life and her dignity. That is where comes the prominence, the role of India in the world, the mission of the race. While his wandering at Kanyakumari, there flashed before him the mind's idea, a picture of India, the inevitable, her past and future possibilities. He saw that India was capable of rising to glory and taking her seat as the queen of nation. His wandering came to Madras, where many young men became his devoted followers. By the time the proposed Parliament of Religion was also abroad, During the month of March and April 1893, Swamiji's disciple in Madras took definite steps to raise subscription for paying his passage to America. Some of them even going to Mysore, Ramnad and Hyderabad for this purpose. While they were doing the collection of money, Swamiji had told that if mother's will, then it will let go him receive the money from the common men. Seeing them so eager to collect fund, Swamiji prayed for hours to the mother and the master for guidance. Though filled with certain assurance, he demanded actual vision. He desired an actual divine command. After some time, one day saw in dream the figure of Sri Ramakrishna walking on the shore of sea over the waters by beckoning him to follow. Thereafter he sought the blessings of Holy Mother too. Despite initial hesitancy, she recognized the will of the Master that Swamiji should go, and she sent her blessings and loving counsel to him. It may be surprising that Swamiji could have taken the bold step to decide to go to an unknown foreign land. He had not much information, no credentials in writing, no any sort of authority, nor the withdrawal to support him for long stay in America. He was to represent the eternal religion of Hindu, Sanatan Dharma, before the audience that would primarily be made of Christians. Later in a letter from America, Swamiji wrote that he actually found himself as a wanderer, preacher of a far distant country without name, fame, wealth or learning to recommend him. Friendless, helpless, almost in a state of destitution, but situation we understood when he notes that Swamiji did not make plans but depended on the divine will. He also disclosed later that he was aware of the divine help of the Lord during his travels. He felt convinced that he was under the protection of Master or his divine consort, Sri Sarada Devi. Swamiji arrived in Vancouver, Canada and travelled to Chicago on rail. When he reached there after 5 days of journey, he spent nearly 12 days observing the city and the fairgrounds. He discovered that the religious convention would not convince until the first week of September. He was taken aback to learn that no one would admit as delegate without proper credential, and the time for submitting such credential was also gone. Chicago was a costly for living. Learning that Boston was much less expensive, Swamiji left for Boston. During his travel, an elderly lady, Miss Catherine Sanborn by name, was also traveling in the same carriage. She was attracted by the personality and invited him to be her guest. Soon many distinguished persons like Professor G.H. Wright and others came into Swamiji's acquaintance. Professor Wright was a professor of Greek in Harvard University, and he remarked that to ask him for the credential is just like asking the sun to state it is right to shine. He wrote to one of his friends connected with the parliament stating that here is a man who is more learned than all the learned professors put together. The first session of Parliament was held on Monday, 11 September 1893 in the spacious Hall of Art Institute. Its huge galleries were packed with more than 4,000 people, men and women representing the best culture of United States. The representatives of various organized organizations were there, and among them was Swami Vivekananda. The event opened with a prayer, after which Chairman Reverend J.H. Barrows introduced the delegates one by one who had prepared their speeches. But Swamiji had no such written speech with him. He had never addressed such a big gathering in his life. He did not speak in the morning session but went on postponing the summons from the chair in the afternoon. When he could not longer put off his turn, he stepped up to the rostrum. He began, after bowing to Devi Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, he spoke, "Brothers and sisters of America." Then a great wave of enthusiasm went to the audience. They rose to feel that the shouts of applause as if had gone mad. Everyone was cheering, cheering and cheering. Swamiji for 2 minutes attempted to speak, but the crowd was wild with enthusiasm. They did not allow him to do. Others had addressed the audience by the customary manners, but Swamiji had touched the deepest chord of the heart, as it was the spirit through which other spirit was touched. After the applause subsided, Swamiji made his brief speech. Today, I wonder what was the extraordinary in those 5 words. Sisters and brothers of America, with which the young Hindu monk Swamiji had greeted this larger Christian audience, and they were responded to a deafening applause of 2 minutes. In putting the womankind first, Swami Vivekananda was paying tribute to 2 women, Kate Sanborn and Mrs. George Hale. Those were the 2 ladies who came to his help when he really needed somebody. Deep with him, he was saluting his mother Bhuvaneshwari Devi and Shri Sarda Devi. But audience would have known none of that, and this does not explain its extraordinary response. Friends, Swamiji spoke 6 times during the parliament. He spoke on 11th September. That was in response to the welcome. Then he spoke on 15th September. He spoke on why we disagree. Then on 19th September, paper on Hinduism. Then on 20th September, religion not crying need of India. Then on 26th September, Buddhism, the fulfillment of Hinduism. And finally, on 27th September, at the final session. I'm telling you all these things because generally whenever we say Chicago address, then it is only we talk for the brothers, the first session that took place on 11th September. But the 6 addresses have made this monk from India as Vishwa Vijay. The newspaper wrote for him as a cyclonic monk. There was a talk in the town, and it was only Swami Vivekananda. There are a large number of lessons that could be learned from his addresses, but today I am sharing few of them which I have tried to pass it on to you. The first is being patriotic. It quotes, "We believe not in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. I am proud to tell you that we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelites who came to southern India and took refuge with us. In the very year when their holy temple was shattered to pieces by the Roman tyranny, I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnant of the grand Zoroastrian nation. Then he spoke for the analysis of religions. I am a Hindu. I am sitting in my own little will, and I am thinking that the whole world is my little will. The Christian sits in his little will and thinks the whole world is his will. The Mohammedan sits in his little will and thinks that the whole world is this much. I have to thank you, America, for the great attempt you are making to break down the barriers of this little world of ours, and hope that in future the Lord will help you accomplish your purpose. Unquote. He spoke for acquaintance with the science. The Vedas teach us that creation is without beginning or end. Science is said to have proved that the sum total of all cosmic energy is always the same. Then, if there was a time when nothing existed, where was this manifested energy? Some say it was in a potential form in God. In that case, God is something potential and sometimes kinetic. This would make him mutable. Everything mutable is compound, and everything compound must undergo with change, which is called destruction. So God would die, which is absurd. Therefore, there never was a time when there was no creation. Unquote. We can understand Swamiji had a good command on science. Next, I share with you, Swamiji teaches us or tells us the necessity of rituals. Superstition is a great enemy of man, but bigotry is worse. Why does a Christian go to church? Why is the cross holy? Why is the face turned towards the sky in prayer? Why are there so many images in the Catholic Church? Why are there so many images in the minds of Protestants when they pray? My brethren, we can no more think about anything without a mental image than we can live without breathing. By the law of association, the material image calls up the mental idea and vice versa. That is why Hindu uses an external symbol when he worships. Unquote. Then he teaches us for the practical need of the masses, because India was undergoing that state for which Swamiji used to literally weep, and he was asking the Christians if they want to do, they do it for the real need. It quotes as, "You erect churches all through India, but the crime evil in the East is not religion. They have religions enough, but it is bright that is suffering millions. Burning idea cry out with parched throats. They ask for bread, but we give them stones. It is an insult to a starving people to offer them religion." Then he teaches us a faith in God. Whatever may be the position of philosophy, whatever may be the position of metaphysics, so long as there is such a thing as death in the world, so long as there is such a thing as weakness in the human heart, so long as there is a crying going out of the heart of man in very weaknesses, there shall be a faith in God, unquote. Then he teaches us the love for all religions. The Christian is not to become a Hindu, or a Hindu, nor a Hindu, a Buddhist. To be Christian, when each such assimilate the spirit of others and yet preserve his individuality and grow according to his own. And finally, the real address he wanted, and it was that really changed the word parliament of religions, the whole scenario. He concludes the speech with, in the face of his evidence, if anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and the destruction of the others, I pity from the bottom of my heart and point out to him, and upon the banner of every religion will soon be written, in spite of resistance, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, harmony and peace and not dissension. So it was all I wanted to share with you, my friends. One can speak for hours, but I think we have got some specific time to discuss. So this was all what I could gather. Thank you very much to all of you for a patience listening. Namaste.